Good morning all. I welcome you to Vignan's Foundation for Science, Technology and Research, Guntur. Myself N. Bharat Kumar, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. In today's class, the following contents are going to be discussed. So coming to the first one, we are going to discuss about the metrics, various metrics and prefix notations that we are going to use in this BEEE course. Next, we are going to discuss about Ohm's law, applications of Ohm's law and a few examples on how to solve problems using Ohm's law. We are going to discuss finally the third topic, which is the concept of classification of electrical sources. What is an electrical source? How the sources are classified based upon several factors. So these are the contents that we are going to discuss in today's class. Metrics and prefix notations. So as an engineer, and specifically electrical and electronics engineering course requires so many metrics and prefix notations. So there are several metrics notation like this, ranging from 10 power 1 to 10 power 24. And coming to the negative prefix notations, it ranges from 10 power minus 1 to 10 power minus 24. So these are the matrix notations that are there in the engineering courses. But in basic electrical engineering, we are going to use specifically these notations only. In positive matrix notations, we are going to concentrate mainly on 10 power 3, 10 power 6 and 10 power 9. 10 power 3 is going to be called as kilo, 10 power 6 mega, 10 power 9 giga. And the symbols used are capital letters, capital K, capital M, capital G. So these will be used for prefixes for positive values. Coming to the negative, we are going to mainly concentrate on only these four notations, prefix notations. 10 power minus 3, minus 6, minus 9, minus 12. And 10 power minus 3 is called as milli, 10 power minus 6 micro, 10 power minus 9 nano, 10 power minus 12 pico. And the notations we are going to use as small letters, small m, this is micro symbol, n, small n and small p. So the difference is for positive prefixes you are going to use capital letters, for negative notations you are going to use small letters. So these are all about the notations. So these, whatever I have marked in red, that should you have to keep in mind because we are going to use frequently these notations. Okay, now let us discuss about Ohm's law. Let's watch an audio visual about Ohm's law before going into the further discussion about this Ohm's law.
Let's look at this situation which we'd seen in one of our earlier videos. Two beakers are connected by a pipe and one of the beakers is placed at a height above the other and the water will flow from this beaker to this one. Now listen to me carefully. If you understand this simple situation well, you will understand Ohm's law too. Just focus for the next 2 minutes and you will master Ohm's law. As we discussed, it's the height difference that makes the water flow from the beaker on top to the one at the bottom. What happens if I increase the height difference? The flow of water will be faster, correct? Absolutely. So we can say that the flow of water is directly proportional to the height difference. Now let's look at another factor. How thin the pipe is. What will happen if I make the pipe thinner? The flow of water will be slower, right? That's correct. Thinner the pipe, slower the flow. So we can say that the flow is inversely proportional to thinness. Looking at these two relations, we can say that the flow is equal to h over t. The flow is directly proportional to the height difference and inversely proportional to the thinness. Why did I give you this example? Because it's analogous to the Ohm's law. The flow of water is analogous to the flow of current. The height difference is analogous to the voltage or potential difference. And the thinness is analogous to the resistance. The flow of current is directly proportional to the potential difference between the points and inversely proportional to the resistance. If the potential difference between 2 points is more, the current flowing through it will be more. And if the resistance is more, the current flowing through it will be lesser. This is assuming that the other factors are constant. This is the basic concept of Ohm's law, and there are many different ways in which we can understand it. Let's do a quick activity to understand Ohm's law. We would need a nichrome wire, a voltmeter an ammeter, and 3 electric cells of very low voltages, somewhere in the range of 1 to 1.5 volts. First, we form a circuit like this which has just one cell as the source. This is the nichrome wire, which is the resistance also. This is the ammeter, which is in series. This is the voltmeter, which is connected in parallel. And this is the plug key. We close the plug key and note down a few readings. We need to note down the reading in the ammeter and the reading in the voltmeter. Let the current and the potential difference be I1 and V1 respectively. In the second case, connect 2 cells in the circuit and note the respective readings of the ammeter and the voltmeter. Don't forget, the ammeter gives the value of current through the nichrome wire and the voltmeter gives the potential difference across the nichrome wire. Let's say the readings are I2 and V2 respectively. And then repeat the same procedure for the third case when 3 cells are used as the source. You will notice that as the number of cells increases, the current as well as the voltage increase. But are they increasing proportionally? To know that, we add an additional column at the right which calculates the value of V over I for each case. You will notice that the ratio of potential difference to the current in each case will approximately be equal. This tells us that the potential difference V across the ends of a wire is directly proportional to the current flowing through it. This relationship was discovered by a German physicist, Georg Simon Ohm, in the year 1827. Notice that the resistance here is constant, and we also assume that all other factors including temperature are also constant. This is the Ohm's law. If V is directly proportional to I, it also means that V over I is constant, and that constant is nothing but R or the resistance. What is resistance? It is simply the property of a conductor to resist the flow of charges through it. Here in this experiment, it was constant. The SI units of voltage and current are volt and ampere respectively. But what's the SI unit of resistance? It's ohm and is represented by this Greek letter. If the potential difference across 2 ends of a conductor is 1 volt and the current through it is 1 ampere, then the resistance of the conductor will be 1 ohm.
Now, what is the statement of Ohm's law? So Ohm's law can be stated as at constant temperature. At constant temperature, the voltage across a resistor is directly proportional to the current through the resistor. So what is the statement of Ohm's law? At constant temperature, the voltage across a resistor is directly Next one, Ohm's law chart. So there are 3 quantities involved in the Ohm's law. What are the 3 quantities? One is voltage, another one is current, and third one is resistance. Suppose mathematically already you know V is equal to I into R. That means there are 3 quantities. I already told V, I, R. If you know any 2 of these quantities, you can easily calculate the third one. Let us see how we are going to calculate. If you want to calculate the unknown quantity, you have to cover that quantity. Suppose I want to solve for V. I think I know about the values of I and R. Now I want the value of V. How will you calculate the value of V? Just cover that value of V. Now the resultant is I into R. So V is equal to I into R. Now if you want to solve for I, then you have to cover that value of I. Now how will you calculate V divided by R? So I is equal to V by R. Now if you want to calculate R, how will you calculate R? Just cover that quantity R. Now the resultant will be V by I. So R is equal to V by I. So this is called as Ohm's law chart. By using this chart, simply we can calculate the respective value or respective unknown quantity if you know other two quantities. That's about Ohm's law. Let's discuss what we have discussed by using a simple example. So this is the simple example I have considered here. The flashlight which I have shown in the diagram. So this is the flashlight. So this flashlight uses a 6-volt battery. So already you know that inside this flashlight we are going to have batteries. I am going to consider that it is using as a 6-volt battery, and the bulb. So you know that in a bulb we are going to have a filament. The resistance of the filament is 150 ohms. So what the battery voltage is 6 volt and the resistance is 150 ohms. Now when the flashlight is on, how much current will be drawn by the battery? The question is, when the flashlight is on, how much current will be drawn from the battery to the bulb? We can represent this problem by using this simple schematic diagram. So I have considered the 6-volt battery as a source, and the resistance of the filament I have connected it as a element. So the 6-volt battery is connected to a resistance of 150 ohms. What is the voltage applied across 150 ohms? The 6 volts. This is the 6 volts which is connected across resistance. Obviously, the voltage across resistance is 6 volts. Now the question is, what is the current flowing through the resistor? So what is the current flowing through the drawn by the battery? So the unknown quantity. So in the triangle, we know the value of voltage, we know the value of resistance. What is the unknown quantity? I. So you have to cover I. Then what is the formula? I is equal to V by R. So V value is 6 volts and resistance value is 150 ohms. So 6 by 150 is 0.04 amperes. Since we already know about the metrics, we are going to represent the current either in terms of milliamperes or microamps. Like this, 0.04 amperes. If you want to convert to milli, you have to multiply with and divide with 1000. So 0.04 when you multiply with 1000, it becomes 40. 1 by 1000 is nothing but 10 power minus 3. So 10 power minus 3 you already know that is milli. So 40 milliamperes. So that's how we are going to convert the decimals to the metrics. So this is one of the example of Ohm's law. Now I think now you are very much clear about Ohm's law and how to apply Ohm's law in an electrical circuit to calculate the unknown quantity. Now let us solve some problems, some simple problems. Given that electrical iron draws 2 amperes at 120 volts, find its resistance. See, previously we have calculated the resistance by using its physical properties, physical dimensions. Now in terms of voltage and current, we have to calculate the resistance. The data given is, first the current has 2 amperes and voltage is 120 volts. So that means the electric iron is drawing 2 amperes from a supply of 120 volts. So if you know voltage and current, how will you calculate resistance? Simply by applying Ohm's law. From Ohm's law we know that V is equal to I into R. So from the Ohm's law chart, the unknown quantity is here. What is the unknown quantity? R. So you have to block the R. Now R is equal to V by I. So by substituting the values of V and I, you are going to get R is equal to 60 ohms. Okay. So let's do this. What is the given data? Given I is equals to 2 amperes and voltage V is 120 volts. Now the unknown quantity is R. So from Ohm's law, we know that V is equals to I into R. Here the unknown quantity is R, so R is V by I. So the given value of V is 120 and I is 2. So finally the resistance is 60 ohms. You have to mention the units also. Now do one more problem on this Ohm's law. How much current is drawn by a toaster with resistance 15 ohms at 110 volts? The question is how much current is drawn by a toaster with resistance 15 ohms at 110 volts. The given data is here, resistance is given and voltage is given. What is Ohm's law? V is equal to IR. And from Ohm's law chart, what is unknown quantity I? So cover that I. So the formula is V by R. So if you substitute the known values, I am going to get the current as 7.33 amperes. Okay. So similar to the previous problem, we are going to cover the unknown quantity and we are going to solve for the unknown quantity from Ohm's law chart. Okay. So let's do this. What is the given data? Given the quantities are, first one is R, which is given as 15 ohms. Next one is V and its value is 110 volts. So from Ohm's law, we know that V is equals to IR. Here we know the value of V and value of R and we don't know the value of I. Therefore the unknown quantity I is nothing but V by R. So V is 110, R is 15. So approximately the value of current is 7.33 amperes. So the value of I is 7.33 amperes. So this is how you are going to apply Ohm's law to calculate the unknown quantity. I think you are now very much clear about Ohm's law. Okay, let's do a simple exercise. So there are two problems here on Ohm's law. So take 5 minutes time and solve these two problems. The first one, a 100 volt battery is connected across a resistor and causes a current of 5 milliamperes to flow. Determine the resistance. Here the known quantities are voltage and current. So from the Ohm's law chart, you can calculate the resistance value. R is equals to V by I. In the second case, in the above problem, that means in the first problem, if the voltage is reduced to 25, what is the new value of current? So if voltage becomes 25 and the resistance value already calculated, now what is the new value of the current he is asking? Okay, you can solve these two. You can verify the answers now. The first one is 20 kilo ohms, second one is 1.25 milliamperes. Okay, so let us solve the first one. Given that voltage V is 100 volts and current is 5 milliamperes. Now from Ohm's law, we know that V is equals to I into R. Here the unknown quantity is the resistance. So the resistance is unknown. So R is equals to V by I. So V is 100. So here I is given in terms of milliamperes. So convert the metric into 10 power minus 3. So I is 5 into 10 power minus 3. So 20 into 10 power 3 ohms. 10 power 3 means kilo. That's why R is equals to 20 kilo ohms. So this is how the first problem is solved. So remember that here in the first case R is 20 kilo ohms. Voltage is 100 volts, current is 5 milliamperes. Now, what is the second problem? Here the voltage is reduced to 25 volts. That means voltage is 25. So R is already calculated. Previous problem I already calculated is 20 kilo ohms. Now the unknown quantity is current here in the second case. Only thing is the voltage is reduced to 25 volts and R we have taken from the previous problem. Now what is the value of the current? So from Ohm's law, V is equals to IR. Here the unknown quantity is I. Therefore I is equals to V by R. So V is 25 and R is 20 kilo. Kilo means 20 into 10 power 3. This gives rho. So that is the how we are going to calculate the current value by using Ohm's law. So these are the two problems on Ohm's law.
Let's discuss about the classification of electrical sources. So coming to the electrical sources mainly classified into two types. First one, independent source, and the next one, dependent source. Again, these independent sources are classified into two types. One is ideal source, next one, practical source. Coming to the ideal sources are again classified into two types. One is an ideal voltage source and next one is ideal current source. Similarly, practical sources are classified into two types, practical voltage source and practical current source. So this is how the independent sources have been classified. Now if you see the classification of dependent sources, these dependent sources are classified based upon the parameter involved in the circuit. So first of all, there are two types of dependent source which is controlled by the voltage. That means the voltage is the factor that is going to be controlled. So the voltage controlled voltage source and voltage controlled current source. Similarly, we are going to classify another two types as current controlled voltage source and current controlled current source. Here the controlling factor of the source is current. In the first two cases, the control factor is the voltage. In the next two cases, the control factor is the current. But in our course, mainly we are going to concentrate on the independent sources only. Okay. Now let us discuss these sources in detail. So coming to the independent source. What is an independent source? An independent source is an active element that provides a specified voltage or current which is completely independent of the other circuit elements. That means the independent source, which is the value that is going to be produced. If it is a voltage source, it will produce a specific voltage. If it is a current source, it will produce a specific current value. These values are not dependent on the other circuit parameters. Okay, the source itself provides the specific voltage or current value which is independent of the other circuit parameters. Such type of source is called independent source. Now, how you are going to represent this independent source? Independent sources are usually designated by circle symbol. By using circle, we are going to represent. This is the notation we are going to follow to represent a voltage source. And you know this basic symbol of a battery. That is, battery is also an example of independent source. And this independent voltage source, if you see, this is an independent voltage source. Independent voltage source is always designated by polarities, plus and minus sign. Because voltage is nothing but the potential difference. So the plus and minus sign are going to be designated inside a circle. How will you represent current source? This independent current source is going to be represented by using a circle inside an arrow. The arrow indicates the direction of the current flowing in the circuit. So this is how we are going to represent independent voltage and current sources. Next, dependent source. Dependent source is exactly opposite to the independent source. The dependent source is also an active element which provides a specific voltage or current, just like independent source, but that value of the voltage or current is always controlled by another voltage or current in the circuit. Okay. In case of independent source, the source will always provide a voltage or current, specified value, but that doesn't depend on any other parameter. But in case of dependent source, whatever the value that is providing by the source, that is always controlled by another voltage or current in the circuit. How will you represent dependent source? Dependent sources are usually designated by diamond shaped symbols. Okay. So this is how you are going to represent a dependent source, voltage source and dependent current source. Always remember that only the shape of the symbol is going to change. If it is a voltage source, plus and minus polarities have to be used. If it is a current source, you are going to use an arrow mark to represent the current value. Okay. So as I told you earlier that we are going to concentrate mainly on independent sources only. So we will study only the independent sources in this course. So how will you classify the independent sources? There are 4 types of independent source if you see finally. Now how will you name the independent source? So coming to this, we are going to consider the first one as independent ideal voltage source. So we are going to call it as independent ideal voltage source. Next, what is the second one? Independent ideal current source. So next one we are going to name it as independent ideal current source. And what is the third one? Independent practical voltage source. And finally, the fourth one is independent practical current source. So these are the four independent sources that we are going to discuss in this course. So here if you see, the independent is common. In all the sources, we are going to use the independent as a common name. Since we are going to specifically study independent source in this course, from now onwards we are not going to use the independent word. We will just call either an ideal voltage source or ideal current source. Just similarly, a practical voltage source or practical current source. Because in this course, whatever the source you are going to use, that is an independent source. The dependent source is not part of this course, that you will study in the higher classes. So for the time being, we are going to eliminate the word independent and we will call the sources as either ideal source or practical source. Let us discuss each one of these sources in detail. Because we are mainly concentrating on these sources, we have to know, or we have to very much aware of these sources and their properties. Let's go and discuss about this ideal voltage source first. What is an ideal voltage source? What is meant by ideal first? So ideal is nothing but perfect. Perfect means it has to give 100% of the output value. So an ideal voltage source is defined as a two-terminal active element that is capable of supplying constant voltage to a circuit despite of any other conditions present in the circuit. So if you see the symbol here, this is the symbol we are going to represent for an ideal voltage source. So what is the meaning of the statement given here? So whatever may be the circuit conditions, always the voltage across these terminals must be Vs. So it says if you connect the source to a circuit, the terminals of the source will always have a voltage of Vs which is equal to the source voltage only. For example, if you consider a resistor, connected a resistor to the source. Now whatever may be, now some current will flow through the circuit. The value of the current doesn't matter. So whatever may be the current, the voltage across the resistor must always be equal to Vs. So this VL is nothing but the voltage across the resistor. So some current is flowing through the resistor in this direction. So this is the current I. The terminal voltage means the voltage across the resistor must always be equal to Vs. So whatever may be the current flowing through the resistor. So that type of source, when VL is equal to Vs, then this type of source is called ideal voltage source. It has to provide always the constant voltage. Let us discuss this in further. Suppose I will take a circuit, the same circuit, now I will vary the resistor. I already told you that the resistor is a physical device which opposes flow of charge. So when you vary the resistance value, the current through the resistance will also vary. But what about the voltage? According to Ohm's law, I is equal to, we know that from Ohm's law, V is equals to I into R. So if the current is varying and the resistance is varying, this current is also varying and resistance, both are varying, such that the voltage should always remains constant. Okay, if the resistance is going to increase, proportionally current is going to decrease. So if R is going to increase, proportionally I is going to decrease, to make sure that the voltage remains always constant. That's how the ideal voltage source will work. Okay, so I am going to tell you once again, when you vary the resistance here, the current also varies. How the current is going to vary? When if you increase the resistance, current decreases. If you decrease the resistance, current increases. So this will happen proportionally to make sure that the voltage always remains constant. What is the factor that is going to make these two equal? Suppose if I have drawn the graph between voltage and current. So the terminal voltage and current. So that always will be constant. If you see here, the voltage, when you increase the current, the voltage remains constant. Whatever may be the current through the circuit, the voltage is constant at Vs. So this is how the current is, voltage is going to be keep constant in ideal voltage source. Now let us go and discuss about the factor that is responsible for this condition. So I have already told you that the voltage always equal to Vs. Why the terminal voltage is equal to Vs? Because the internal resistance, see you know that the current, whatever may be the current flowing, the terminal voltage is equal to the source voltage. Why? Because here the internal resistance of the source is 0. This is the factor which is going to make this VL is equal to Vs to happen. The internal resistance of the voltage is always 0. When it is 0, the current flowing, I told you that the IL is the current flowing through the resistance. So whenever the current flows through it, since the resistance is 0, the voltage drop across this resistance is 0. That way the total voltage is going to be appear across the load terminals. So there is no voltage across the source resistance. Because of this, the terminal voltage is always equal to the source voltage. So for ideal voltage source, the internal resistance is 0. This is very much important. You have to keep in mind. Of course, practically it is not possible. Because it is an ideal case, we are going to consider that internal resistance is 0. Okay. Now let us discuss about ideal current source. So what is an ideal current source? Similar to that of voltage source, an ideal current source is defined as a two-terminal active element which is capable of supplying constant current. Okay. So ideal voltage supplies constant voltage. Similarly, ideal current source supplies a constant current to the circuit despite of any other conditions present in the circuit. Whatever may be the elements that you can connect to the circuit, but the source will always deliver a constant current value. So the symbol used to denote ideal current source is this. So arrow inside a circle. Now the voltage across the terminals is, for example, I have considered it as Vs. So if you vary the voltage, the current will not vary. As in ideal voltage source, if the current varies, voltage doesn't vary. Similarly here in ideal current source, if you vary the voltage also, the current will not vary. Suppose I have connected a resistance here. If I vary the resistance value, then the current going through this will not vary. Okay. So if I connected a resistance, one constant current will flow here. Because of this current, the voltage will be established. But this current is not going to change when I vary the voltage. How? I am going to say IL is always equal to IS. Whatever may be the current flowing here through the load IL and whatever the current supplying by this source, both are always equal. Even if you vary the resistor also, the currents are equal. Then only we are going to call it as ideal current source. Let us see how it is going to happen. So for any load condition, current flowing through the load is constant. Now I have connected a resistor and I am going to vary the resistance value. So the resistance, the property of a resistor is it has to oppose the current flow. But what is the property of ideal current source? It has to deliver constant current. How this is going to happen? The resistance, if you vary the resistance, current must vary. But the current source, ideal current source property is it has to deliver constant current. How it is going to happen? By means of this voltage. This voltage will vary instead of the current. From Ohm's law, you know that V is equals to I into R. Okay. To make current constant, we are going to find a relation here. V directly proportional to R. When you increase this R, the voltage will increase. When you decrease the value of R, obviously the voltage will decrease. That means the voltage across the load will adjust to make sure that the current through the load remains equal to the source current. That's how the ideal current source will work. If you draw the voltage and current relationship here, see, if you increase the voltage, the current remains constant. It is not going to vary. whatever may be the voltage. So from 0 to some value you are going to increase. Starting from 0, you are going to increase the voltage. But the current is always remaining at Is only. So this is the characteristic of ideal current source. Okay. I think now you must be aware of this ideal current source. And what is the factor that is going to responsible for this constant current? The internal resistance. So the internal resistance here is going to be value must be equal to infinity, and it is connected in parallel. So the connections I will explain later. For time being, please keep in mind that the internal resistance of a current source will always be connected in parallel. In case of ideal voltage source, the internal resistance is connected in series. This internal resistance must be always equal to infinity. If it is infinity, the current that is coming here will not go. So this current will goes here, because high value of resistance is going to be offered. Infinite resistance means zero current. It allows zero current. That's why the total current is going into the load. This is called the ideal case. Of course, infinite resistance is not possible. That's why we are going to call it as ideal source. So that's what I have told you. For ideal current source, the internal resistance is infinity. Okay. So this is all about ideal voltage source and ideal current source. Next, we are going to discuss about practical voltage source. What is a practical voltage source? So already told you that in case of ideal voltage source, the internal resistance is 0 and it will always provide a constant voltage irrespective of the circuit conditions. But here, in case of practical voltage source, it is not possible. The practical voltage source is a two-terminal active element that cannot be capable. It cannot be capable of supplying constant voltage. So it cannot supply constant voltage across its terminals. The internal resistance of the practical voltage source, it is not 0. The internal resistance of the practical voltage source is not 0, but rather it has a finite value which is very, very small, of course almost equal to 0. So the symbol used to represent practical voltage source is, we are going to consider a resistance here. Keep in mind, the internal resistance of the practical voltage source is not equal to 0. Now if you measure the voltage across the terminals, the voltage is always less than Vs. So what is the voltage across the terminal? So VL is always less than Vs. Why? Because of this internal resistance. So when the current flows through here, the source current, when it is flowing through the internal resistance, since the resistance is not 0, it is having some finite value, some voltage is going to be drop across this internal resistance. Because of the drop, the total voltage is not going to be supplied to the load. So when the voltage, total voltage, when you connect to the load, some of the voltage is going to be dropped across this resistor. That's why the voltage going to the load is going to decrease. VL is less than Vs. Okay. Suppose, for example, I have connected a resistance here across the terminals of the source, practical voltage source. Now what is the voltage across the load resistor? So that voltage is nothing but VL is equal to Vs minus Rs into Is. I already told you that some voltage is going to be dropped across this resistance. What is the value of that resistance? From Ohm's law. As already we know that from Ohm's law, what is the current flowing through the resistor? Is is the current flowing through the resistor. And what is the value of the resistance? Rs. Therefore, the voltage is Is into Rs. So the voltage across the internal resistance is Is into Rs. This voltage is going to be drop across the resistance. That's why we are going to subtract this drop from the total voltage. So Vs minus Rs into Is. So this much of value is going to be appear across the load resistance value. That's why VL is always less than Vs. Alternatively, you can calculate the load voltage. If you know load current and load resistance value, you can calculate the load voltage as RL into IL also. That is a different case. But here in terms of source value, VL is always less than Vs. That you have to keep in mind. Unlike ideal source where VL is equal to Vs, in case of practical source, VL is less than Vs. it is not equal. Let us draw the VI characteristics here. Now I am going to vary the resistance here and I am going to calculate the voltage. Already we know VL is less than Vs. How the voltage is going to vary now? The voltage will start from Vs because we have supplied voltage. When you vary the resistance value, suppose I am going to increase or decrease the resistance value. According to that, the voltage may drop or rise. This is how the ideal voltage source curve is going to appear. But in case of practical, the voltage is going to reduce. Okay, the difference is already we know. This is the factor which is going to make the drop in voltage. If Rs is 0, if Rs equal to 0, suppose if I make Rs equal to 0 in this expression, then obviously VL is equals to Vs. Then the practical voltage source will behave like ideal voltage source if Rs is 0. So these are the VI characteristics of practical voltage source, and I think already you know how this practical voltage source will behave. Now let us discuss about the practical current source. Similar to practical voltage source, this practical current source also not capable of delivering or supplying constant current to the load connected to its terminals. Because the internal resistance it cannot be capable of supplying constant. So practical current source cannot be capable of supplying constant current. Why? Because here the infinite resistance is not going to be appear across the internal resistance of the current source. It is not infinite. It is having some finite value. So this is the symbol used to represent a practical current source. See here, the internal resistance of the practical source is not infinite. If it is not infinity, if it is having some value, then it allows some current to flow through it. If the resistance is not infinity, then the resistance obviously allows some value of the current. Of course, if it is having high value, it allows very small current. If some current flows through this, what happens at this point? The current coming from the source is Is. If a small amount of current I1 flows through this, what is the current flowing through the load? It is obviously Is minus I1. That means the whatever may be the voltage across the terminals, the current is going to be reduced. Here the current IL is always less than Is, because Is minus I1 is the current that is coming to the load if you connect any load here. Let us discuss that condition also. Suppose if I connected a load, one resistor here, okay, and assume that the resistance value is RL and the current flowing through it is IL. Now obviously the IL, what is the value of IL? So assume that the current here it is ISH and the source current is Is. At this junction, the current coming from the source is Is and the current flowing into the internal resistance is ISH. So from the total current coming from the source, if Is is going into the internal resistance, what is the value of IL? What is the remaining current coming out of this? Obviously it is Is minus ISH. That current will flow through the load resistor. So IL is equals to Is minus ISH. Okay. So that means obviously the load current is less than the source current. As said here, it cannot be capable of supplying constant current. That's how the practical current source is going to be work. Okay. Now let us discuss about the characteristics, VA characteristics of the practical current source. So if load resistance varies, I already told you that when you vary the load resistance, the current through it varies, but this current is always less than the source current. If you draw the curve between voltage and current here, the load voltage and load current, Is will always, it is not constant, it is reducing. Suppose if I increase the resistance, the current reduces. If I decrease the resistance, the current increases. But it will not remain constant like ideal voltage source. So this is the practical and this is ideal voltage source. The difference is nothing but IL is equal to Is minus ISH. Okay. So I think with this course you know clearly about the ideal source, ideal voltage source and practical voltage source, as well as ideal current source and practical current source. That's for today. Now let us summarize once again what we have discussed. First, we have discussed about the matrix and prefix notations. So in matrix notation, we discussed the positive, main importantly, we are concentrated on these three. There are several matrix notations, but the most used notations in this course are kilo, mega and giga. Similarly, in negative matrix, the mainly used notations are 10 power minus 3, 10 power minus 6 and 10 power minus 9, which is called milli, micro and nano. Next, we have discussed about Ohm's law. What is Ohm's law? We have description, we have given a description with small example. Then we have formulated or we have expressed this Ohm's law using a mathematical expression V is equal to IR. Then we formulated a chart. Okay, I think you remember the chart. So VIR chart. So from this chart, we have calculated the unknown value of unknown value. By closing one unknown quantity, we have calculated the remaining values. Next, after formulating the chart, from this chart we have calculated the unknown value by covering the unknown quantity and calculating the remaining value. Later I have explained the Ohm's law by using a simple example. And finally, I have discussed about the electrical sources. So what is an electrical source? How these electrical sources have been classified? In the classification, we are mainly concentrated on independent source and dependent sources. In case of independent sources, because we are mainly concentrating on independent sources only, these independent sources have been classified into two types that we have discussed, ideal and practical sources, and we have elaborately discussed these ideal and practical current sources. So that's what we have discussed in this today's class. Thank you very much.